for me to make you onto the show. So there you go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. David Ben-Gurion, who was born in 1886 and died in 1973, was the primary founder and the first prime minister of the state of Israel. Known as the father of the nation, he led the Jewish community in Palestine through the struggle for independence and shaped the foundational institutions of the new state, including the Israel Defense Forces. Mr. Ben-Gurion, you were known as the leader of the Zionist movement. What is Zionism?
Zionism was the movement to have a state for Israel. During World War II, as you know, the terrible, terrible tragedies that took place where the Nazis attempted to basically wipe the Jewish culture from the face of Europe. The people of Israel, the Jewish people who wanted a homeland, had nowhere to go. So we referred to Zionism as the act of people wanting to have a state, an independent state for Israel. We knew it was going to be very difficult, and I worked many, many years through World War II and beyond to try to get the state of Israel a permanent home. When the United Nations did the partitioning of what was then known as Palestine, although Palestine was not a formalized country, we had the opportunity we were looking for. And I was chosen to be the leader of the movement. So Zionism was basically just the desire that the people, the Jewish people, would have a state of their own.
At the time Israel came into existence, did the Palestinians live in what they considered a country of their own, meaning Palestine?
They did consider it a country of their own, but it never was a formal country. They had never had a single government, and they never really could govern themselves. Palestine at the time was basically Arabic tribes living in a general location. It was a land that was basically shared by the Jewish population because that was the homeland of Jesus, and that was the place that Moses had brought the Jewish migration hundreds of years previously. So it was the traditional home for the Jews for over 500 years. Yes, the Palestinians lived there, but the land was basically shared. So when they partitioned it, they did not say that there was a country of Palestine. When the UN petitioned it, they said that there was a country of Israel. And we took over and we made sure that that country existed. And even though the neighbors would continuously wage war and we had to defend ourselves, we became very good at defending ourselves. But to answer your question, yes, there were Palestinians who were disrupted and had to move. But we tried to provide work for them. They worked in many of our businesses in Israel. And we had no animosity towards the Palestinians. It was the Palestinians that showed animosity towards us. We did what we needed to do to survive. There was no way I was going to let the country fail.
When Israel was formed in 1948, were the Palestinians forced to move from what they considered their homeland?
Not entirely. The area was partitioned, and they had to move to another segment of their land to make room for us, but they were not driven totally from the land that they considered their homes as well. Just the same as the United Nations partitioned other countries. Pakistan, for instance. There were many areas where the Shia and Sunni were separated, but they were not driven from their homeland. They moved to a segment of their homeland, and we had people that were living in the area where the Palestinians were to move. Those individuals had to move back to the Jewish area. So it was not just a single move that was required. The Palestinians thoroughly resented what was taking place. The Jewish people that lived where the Palestinians were to move to, they were happy to return to a Jewish homeland. So the Palestinians had the opportunity. They could have, in many ways, I guess you could say they were abused, but they had the opportunity to form a viable government, to trade with the world, to do all of the things that we chose to do. But they wanted to become martyrs. They did not want, they never had a really effective government. They always blamed us for what took place, but they were actually given the opportunity to form a government and a country of their own, but they didn't take it.
Was there any historic relationship between the people of Iran and the Palestinians?
Not really. The people of Iran were truly different from the Palestinians. Iran was known as Persia. The Shah changed the name to Iran, and he modernized the country. He brought a lot of new things for the people. He was very progressive. The women were being treated as equals for him in most instances. The Shah did a lot. Iran progressed while the Palestinians did not. And that is just simply a sad historical fact.
When Israel was established in 1948, how did the people of Iran react?
In the beginning, those of the Persian background or Islamic backgrounds were opposed very much to it. But there was a large Jewish population in Iran, probably as many as 50 to 80,000 people moved to the new Israel to start a new beginning. Generally, that was the Jewish population that was had poorer jobs, but the wealthy Jewish people remained in Iran. They got along very well with the Shah. They were traders. They were building industries that benefited the country. So yes, some people did migrate to the new country, but those who had middle incomes, good jobs, they stayed. So there continued to be cooperation between the Shah and the Jewish people that remained in the country.
What was the attitude of the Israeli government towards Iran?
In the beginning, they were very defensive towards Iran because they knew that there was an Islamic community that resented what was taking place. But we were very progressive, Iran was very progressive under the Shah. And Israel did not take up arms against Iran, and they actually started to cooperate with them. There were conversations that Iran and Israel would work together. So in the beginning, Israel was very, very defensive because the whole Islamic community was opposed to it. Egypt, Lebanon, many of the neighbors wanted to actually declared war against the early state, trying to destroy it. But Iran really stayed out of those different military operations. The Shah did not want to attack a country that was having the benefits of the United Nations. The Shah just simply wanted his people to progress, for his country to progress. And in many instances, the progressiveness that he brought to the country resulted in him being overthrown because traditional Islamists resented what the Shah was doing.
How was your relationship with the Shah of Iran?
It was actually fairly good. We had discussions. The Shah told me that he was not going to take any military action against our country, and he was looking to the future. He knew that Israel was going to be an economic powerhouse, and he wanted to have trade relations with them. Trade with Israel could be a great benefit to the country of Iran.
How did the relationship change, though, when the Shah was overthrown by the Islamic Revolution?
It was a very radical change. Once the Islamists took over, they started talking that Israel had to be destroyed. Death to Israel, death to the United States. They were incredibly radical. They were very hardline, and they meant what they said. These people, the Islamists that took over, were religious fanatics. It's very difficult to deal with a religious fanatic. They're not going to change. So I'm not sure how we could have done anything any differently. When the Islamists took over, I was no longer in political power, but the people, the leaders that came after me, they made Israel an incredibly strong military. The IDF became a great force in the area, but the Islamists, they created as many problems as they could. They had the neighbors, they supported Egypt at the time. So there were many, many problems that were created after they took over.
How would you characterize the goals of the Iranian government after the Islamic Revolution?
To have ultimate political power in the Middle East, to destroy Israel, not to have any relationship with the United States, to persecute Christians or anyone that was not following the strict interpretations of Islam that they were using. In many instances, the mullahs have misinterpreted the great religion of Islam. We never had problems with the Islamic faith as such, because in ancient times, when the Prophet Muhammad lived, he got along with the Jewish community. In many instances, the Jewish community supported him. It was really not until the interpretations of what was written in the Quran came about as a result of these extremists. The extremists resent anything progressive. They do not think women are equal to men. I mean, look at the abuse that women go through in Iran now under the mullahs. So they just have a very, very different way of looking at modern civilization.
Do you think there ever can be peace between the Palestinians and the Israelis?
Yes. I think that once the influence of Iran is taken away, Hamas basically took over the country, the area that the Palestinians were living in. Hamas was given weapons, leadership from Iran. If you are successful today in the current times of defeating the mullahs, and there is a great change, then there will be no funding for Hamas. They will not be able to arm themselves. So as the hardline members of Hamas are destroyed, they will be replaced by people that hopefully will be able to be more progressive and to join with Israel. Nothing would be better for Israel than if the Palestinians worked together with them. Economically, they could be a powerhouse in the area. But until Iran is the cancer of the Middle East. They're the ones that are supporting terror. They're the ones that are creating unrest in the area. the area would, all of the Middle East actually would be capable of working together if it was not for the cancer of Iran. So it will not be until they are destroyed that the leadership changes. The people of Iran are magnificent people. We have absolutely no animosity through the years with the people of Iran. Everything is being controlled by the mullahs and the way they interpret their faith. They're religious fanatics. I guess you could say in many ways we are Jewish religious fanatics, but we do not want to conquer the world. If economically we can do very well, then so be it. We have a very strong military, but we were forced to do this. It will not be until there is regime change in Iran that the Middle East can truly be at peace.
Do you think that there can ever be peace between the Palestinians and the Israelis if the Palestinians are not able to obtain a country of their own?
Yes, because they can be autonomous. I think in time that if the Palestinians prove that they can live peacefully with the rest of the world, they would be given a country of their own. They have been trying for many, many years, but they cannot control their government. The government that Hamas basically took over the Palestinians. The government that was supposedly set up to control the Palestinian area, they have no control. They had to bow to the feet of Hamas. When you take Iran out of the picture, then Hamas will die. There will be no financial support for them. And the world, possibly China or Russia may be interested in supporting Hamas, but essentially their sponsorship will be gone. And when they lose their sponsors, they will be gone as well. The world will step in and assist the Palestinians. They'll give them economic aid. They'll help build businesses. We will help them. Once we know we can live at peace with the Palestinians, the Israeli government will do much for their benefit because it's good business. Why would you want a poverty-stricken country living next to you when you can use their abilities to gain more economic strength? So it's common sense. It's just simply that there's a cancer, and it's the mullahs of Iran that are destroying the future of the Middle East. The way the war is going right now, it is possible that they can be destroyed. If the mullahs are allowed to survive, you will be facing the same thing in 10 years. There's no way around it. They will lie, they will cheat, they will do everything they can to maintain their power. Keep in mind this: the mullahs are not true people of God, even though they profess through their religion to be so. God wants peaceful people to live peacefully among themselves. Their religion that they face is not Islam. Islam is a peaceful faith when it's interpreted properly. So as long as the mullahs are governing Iran, there will be no peace in the Middle East.
Do you see any way for there to be normalization between Israel and Iran?
It's going to be very difficult because of the way that the mullahs control the people of Iran. They've just killed over 30,000 of their people that simply wanted more freedom, wanted to be able to live in peace, be able to pay their bills. The people have been kept under the iron thumb. All they do is hear propaganda from the government. Today, they don't even have internet service where they can listen. The government has shut that down. The people want freedom. People always want freedom. But until the government and their paramilitary forces are destroyed, it will be very difficult for the people to rise up. Hopefully there are organizations that are arming the people of Iran so that they can be on an equal footing with the paramilitaries. But until the people are armed and that they can act on their own, and the government is weakened to the point that they can be successful, there's not going to be change.
What do you see as the future for Iran and Israel?
I think that Iran has been weakened so much economically at this point. Their military has been weakened. And I think that as time goes on, there's no way that the country can exist the way they're trying to exist at this time. There will be no food. The water sources will probably dry up. There will be no economic assistance. I think that the Mossad will probably work to undermine the government of Iran through the future. Hopefully, they will give up their power, but that will, in my mind, will never happen. They are fanatics, and when you deal with fanatics, there's only one way to terminate it. So I truly hope that the people can rise up and overthrow them, but they have to be supported militarily. The United States will not put troops on the ground to support an uprising. The people are going to have to militarize and do it on their own. But when you look at the way the mullahs took over, you can see that it is possible. If the people are given the help, and if you continue to choke Iran economically, that is the only way that you're going to overthrow them.
Do you have a final message for us?
Yes, I would like to thank you, of course, for allowing me to speak. There are many people in the world that hate Jews, but we have been oppressed through the years. For hundreds of years, we didn't have a true homeland that we could call our own. We survived by being very powerful economically. Sometimes wealthy people are resented. There have been times that the Jewish people have perhaps taken advantage of their economic prowess, but they are basically God-fearing religious people. Once they know their homeland is totally secure, I think that things will be so much better for them, that they will have more freedom of action to do more good for those around them. Right now, they're involved in wars on multiple fronts. The people are still trying to destroy the country of Israel. When they find peace, and that will only be when Iran is destroyed, that they cannot support the terrorist groups that are surrounding Israel, then Israel will reach out, do business with all of the Middle Eastern countries, provide access to water for their oil, do many things that will serve the area. When that takes place, you can all live in peace. But the first step is to kill the cancer that lives in Iran. So thank you very, very much for allowing me to speak tonight. I know my friend Shah is here, and he is waiting to speak as well.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister, for your thoughts on this difficult subject that has put us so close to World War III. And now we're going to speak with the spirit of Mohammad Pahlavi, the Shah of Iran, who was deposed by the Islamic Revolution in 1979. Shah, thank you for joining us today. How did you feel when the country of Israel was created in 1948?
To be honest, I was very worried. I thought that it was going to be very, very unsettling to establish an Israeli state. I knew that there were countries surrounding the area that had been chosen that were not going to be able to, shall we say, live peacefully with the concept. Egypt in particular was very negative towards it. The establishment of Israel was opposed by many of the Islamic countries. For years, the Jewish people had been mistreated. They had no homeland. Millions of them had been killed during the war by Germany. It was actually a terrible time. And because of the mistreatment, they were given a country. I had doubts as to how they would react in the Middle East. I knew that I did not want to get involved militarily to face them because there were allies that would probably come to their support if it looked like the country was going to be destroyed. I knew the Israeli people had great economic powers in the United States, in England, in many of the allied countries. So I informed them that I would not take military action against them, and I sat back and waited to see what would happen. I realized that no one was going to defeat them militarily. The Israeli Defense Forces were fighting for the lives of their country, and they were not going to be defeated. They were great. They built an incredible military, and I did not in any way want to have to face it with my military. So in the beginning, I was on the surface negative towards it because I had to have good cooperation with the other Islamic countries in the Middle East. But I did not take any actions that would defeat Israel from existing.
You ruled Iran for 31 years during the formative time for the country of Israel. What was your opinion toward the Palestinians during that period?
I had sympathies for the Palestinians, but they always made the wrong decisions. They would bring in leadership that would try to terrorize their neighbors, especially Israel. Their governments, their leaders, they would bring in people that would steal whenever the allies or the democracies would try to support the Palestinians. The leadership would skim off the money. You had leaders that were supposed to be helping the Palestinians that were living in high style, that had made millions of dollars for themselves. So the Palestinians, I had sympathies for them, but they just simply always seemed to make the wrong decisions. I wish that they could have an independent state. I wish that they could live peacefully with all their neighbors. But until they learn to live peacefully with Israel, it's not going to happen. The world is trying to create a situation where everyone lives peacefully. And you see what is happening. There are wars all over the Middle East. Until the radical members of the Islamic faith lose power and learn to live peacefully, it's going to be a very difficult time.
During your reign, do you feel that there was anything you could have done differently that would have prevented the Islamic Revolution?
There's always something that you can do. I tried to be as progressive as possible. The people that lived in my country were very, very similar to all of Western Europe. They were experiencing a high standard of living, and women were having mutual powers with the men. Much of what I was doing in my progressive movement infuriated the Islamic community. When you give a woman equal power in a community, you're going against the interpretation of the Quran that was being used by the Islamic extremists. The men are very, very reluctant to give up the power that they have over women, as defined in extreme Islamic faith. So perhaps I could have not been as progressive, and perhaps I should have taken military action or police actions against the extremists. But I was trying to give all the people freedom in the country. I was trying to emulate Western democracies as best I could under the circumstances. So I allowed a cancer to fester. I should have stepped in militarily and stopped the Islamic movement before it gains the strength that it had.
We were told that the major countries in the world felt that there was a danger that the Soviet Union would take over Iran. Were you growing more friendly with the Soviet Union?
I was trying to open relationships with the Soviet Union, yes. They were our neighbor. They were close by. They had already taken many of the European countries. The Iron Curtain was very powerful. They had many nuclear weapons. I was trying to become more friendly with the Soviet Union because I feared that they may even try to take over my country. They had the nuclear weapons. They were very powerful. They had this incredibly large military. While I favored the Western democracies and tried to support them every way I could, I knew that I had to remain friendly with the Soviet Union because they were truly capable of conquering any country they wanted to conquer. So, yes, it did appear that I was growing more friendly, but I had absolutely no intention of breaking the close ties with the Western democracies.
How would you describe your relationship with the members of the Jewish community that lived in Iran?
It was very good. The Jewish community were great business people. They brought great wealth to Iran. I had no animosities towards them. The Jewish people certainly did not want to overthrow me. I got along with them. It was only when the radicals came in that the Jewish community started to be abused. But the Christian community started to be abused. Anyone that was not Muslim was abused by the radicals when they came in. So I got along very well with everybody, and I was trying to build my country to emulate what was taking place in the thriving Western democracies.
As you watch from the other side, what are your feelings concerning what has taken place in Iran?
I am so sad to watch. The mullahs have been terrible for the country of Iran. They have created a situation where basically every country in the Middle East hates them, hates the country. They have sponsored terrorism throughout the area. When this current war takes place, they are destroying their neighbors who bear no animosity towards them. None of the neighbors have taken arms towards them. Yes, through the years, they have built military bases and cooperated with NATO and the United States, but they did that out of fear. All of the countries feared Iran and currently fear them. They knew that the country could shut off the shipment of oils, and all of the neighboring countries basically depend on income from oil. So Iran always had this sort of Damocles that they held over the heads of the neighboring countries. The neighboring countries resented Iran. They feared them because they knew that they could hurt them very badly economically. And that is exactly what has taken place in the past month. So Iran brought this all on themselves. The mullahs have created this situation, and they have pushed all of the neighboring countries in the United States too far. And now they're going to pay the price.
As you watch from the other side, what are your feelings concerning what has taken place in Iran?
It is taking place for the betterment of the people. The people have been abused physically, economically. The government has been spending billions and billions upon military, upon helping terrorist organizations, and has spent nothing towards the people. The people of Iran are basically living in poverty. The cost of living is skyrocketing. When you have to spend millions of your dollars to buy an apple, you got a problem. Economically, the people are just being tortured beyond control. They cannot raise their families. They cannot educate them. So I'm so sad for the people. I love the people of Iran. The Persian people throughout history have been leaders. Sadly, these fanatics have taken over and have destroyed the standard of living of my beautiful country.
What was your approach to nuclear energy and nuclear enrichment?
Nuclear energy was new. I feared countries that had it. I feared the Soviet Union because of the incredible number of nuclear weapons they had. They basically had the ability to come in and take over Iran if they wanted to do it. I did not want to take the great expenditures that were required to build nuclear weapons. It is incredibly expensive to have a program where you are researching and using most of your money to go towards building these weapons. I knew that once we had the weapons, there were many countries that would try to stop us. They would fear Iran if they had nuclear weapons. So I spent the money that the country had towards building a better standard of living. You cannot have weapons and food. If you're going to be a fully armed nuclear country, you're going to spend an incredible amount of your budget towards the weapons. And it becomes very difficult to raise the standard of living of your people. I always chose the people. It may not have always seemed like that because I had to do what I needed to do to get along in the neighborhood. But I always chose to do what I thought was best for the people.
How close was Iran to getting a nuclear weapon?
Incredibly close. We watched from over here and we understood truly what they were doing. They were basically weeks away from being able to have their first weapon. The Soviet Union and China is providing technical support to what they were trying to accomplish. It would have been to the advantage of China and Russia for the mullahs to have a nuclear weapon because they would have used it. Of course, that would have resulted in other countries using it against them. So turmoil is the greatest advantage that Russia and China can create today. If they can create unrest in the democracies, then they have a great chance to succeed into the future. So it's a very difficult time for the country. Hopefully this war will resolve in the people having better lives. But as you watch the negotiations, you can predict what's going to take place. Iran will make great promises and they will lie. They will gain short-term advantages, and you will be back again in a couple of years to facing the threat of nuclear weapons. It does not they have the technologies now. They will be able to continue. You may think that you can get all of their enriched or uranium, but there will be enough hidden that they can still create a bomb. So As long as the mullahs are there, the world will be at great danger.
During your lifetime, what were your religious beliefs?
I believed in God. I believed in trying to do what he spoke of. I respected the Islamic faith, and there were times people would think that I was Muslim. I respected the Jewish people, and there were times that the Muslim people hated me for respecting Israel. I respected the Christians that lived in our country. The Islamic people grew to hate me because I would support those people. So I can't really say that I was of any one true faith, but I truly believed that there was one God, and I tried to do the best I could for my people.
What condition and force during your reign do you think brought about the Islamic Revolution?
Me not taking police action against them. I should have taken actions against the cells that were developing. I knew that I had to remain friendly because all of the countries that surrounded us were Islamic. So I did not take action against the mullahs. I understood their radical opinions, but there were other countries, Afghanistan, Pakistan, where there were many, many radicals that supported the mullahs. Sadly, I did not make the decision to destroy their movement. That is what allowed them to gain strength. There was a considerable number of people in Iran that supported them, or the takeover could have never happened. I think the people did not realize what was taking place within the Islamic faith. I know certainly that the Christians and the Jews, they were not reacting to what was taking place. No one expected the revolution. No one expected that they would take the hostages of Americans. It was, I guess, stupidity on my part, but I chose to allow that group of people to function, and I should have taken action against them.
Do you think there is any chance for the normalization of relationships between Iran, Israel, and the United States?
Only if the mullahs are destroyed and taken out of power. The only goal of the mullahs right now is to remain in power. They will destroy the economy. They will destroy the country in order to remain in power. And as long as they are there, it will just be a matter of time till they gain strength. Because if they are left to be there, China and Russia will continue to support them. And they will be back powerful within 5 years, and you will be facing this, except when you face them the next time, they will have a nuclear weapon, and they will use it. So there is only one answer at this time, and that is to get rid of those, to kill the cancer.
Do you think it is possible to have a long-term normalization between Iran and the United States?
Absolutely, but not with the mullahs being there. The United States has physically destroyed many of the assets of the mullahs. They've killed the leadership of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. There are many things that the United States will never be forgiven for. They have harmed the economy, and they have put the mullahs at risk. So no, as long as they are in power, there will never be a normalization. There will only be strong hatreds, and those hatreds will grow like a cancer. So the cancer must be destroyed. That is your only answer.
Do you believe the revolutionary government will be able to survive?
Yes, I think they absolutely will be able to negotiate and lie their way out. They will tell the United States negotiators whatever they want to hear. And then they will do whatever they want to do. Iran has always done this since the revolutions took place. Why do you think they will change? They will tell you anything that you want to hear. They did it with your previous presidents. Your previous presidents bought into it, and all they did, your President Obama gave them billions and billions of dollars to get a deal, and all they did was use that money to create terrorism throughout the world. None of that money went to help the people. It only went to terrorism. Why do you think it will change now? Any dollars that they give to the people to help them will be dollars that could be spent to make them more powerful. How do you think they're going to react? Look at history. The answers are clear. If you don't destroy them now, you will be facing it again in several years.
What form of government will you think will control the country of Iran in the future?
I hope it becomes a true democracy, but that's a big step. My guess is it'll be more of maybe a social type republic. I would love to see it become a true democracy where the people pick the leaders, but that's a long way off.
What advice would you offer to your son, Shahazid Reza Pahlavi, who has stepped forward and expressed readiness to help lead the transition for the country?
I would tell him to proceed with caution. I would tell him that he has a huge target on his back because there are many that do not want him to succeed. I think that if he was to be able to help with a transition, that it would be a transition to a type of democracy. But keep in mind that democracies in the Middle East are different from those of, say, the United States. There are powerful forces that are armed in Iran. And it is going to be very, very difficult to come up with a single government that will be able to control those armed forces. So my son means well, but if he does not have the total help of the Israelis and the United States as backers, and Western Europe and NATO, he will probably fail.
Do you have any advice you'd like to share for a better future in Iran?
Sadly, the only advice I can give is that the people must gain strength. They must arm themselves as necessary and do whatever they need to do to overthrow the mullahs. As long as the Islamic radicals are in control, the people will never be able to advance because any financial gains will go towards giving the government more control, and it will never be spent on the people.
Do you have a final message for us?
Yes. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak. I love the people of Iran. I tried to do my best for them for the years that I governed. I know that I created doubts, but I was trying to walk a tightrope as I was ruling the country. I was caught between the Soviet Union and the United States and England and the Allied countries. I did many good things for the people. Today, the people are so mistreated that it brings tears, even here in heaven. I need to try to influence leaders as best as I can from over here. And I truly hope that the United States government goes through what they have to do to control the country and to bring about a type of democracy. If they don't do it, they will be faced with a nuclear-armed Iran in the near future. Russia and China will give them weapons to use. The only defense is to truly have individuals in the government of Iran that love the people and truly want to cooperate with all of the neighbors, and that includes Israel. So thank you so much for allowing me to speak. I appreciate the opportunity, and I truly hope that the Iranian people will be able to take control of their country. Goodbye.
Thank you, Shah, for your great insight and answers.
Okay. Good show. Very interesting. I think they are totally correct in what they were saying. So we'll see what happens. You can tell in the negotiations, the Iranians are lying already. And sadly, it looks like we're taking the bait, but that's another story. Okay, Elena, thank you so much. As always, it's a pleasure. We'll be back again next week. We simply have to decide who we're going to talk to. So goodbye, and we'll see you then.